Hi, everybody. At this point, we have gone through all of the logistics for the course, covered how the course is going to be structured, and now we're ready to really start getting into the material of the course. This first mini lecture isn't going to be a long one, and it's just going to introduce you to really the philosophy of our course and what we aim to learn during this class. Let me begin by changing the view so that you can take a look at the slides. All right. So this course is called Computational Modeling of Physiological Systems. But what is physiology? What does that mean? Well, physiology historically has been used to describe the study of the function of biological systems. This is contrasting to anatomy, which is the study of the structure of biological systems. Now, of course, biological systems is itself a fairly vague term, ranging everything from the low-level chemistry of life, if you will, the molecules that are essential for living things, up through populations of organisms, ecosystems, and the biosphere, and so on. We don't usually use the term physiology to describe this low and anatomy for that level, for that matter, to describe the studies at this very low chemical level. Rather, we tend to refer that as biochemistry. Similarly, we don't tend to describe ecological problems, problems at the population level in terms of the terms physiology and anatomy. We tend to simply refer those as ecology, say. But we do use the terms physiology to describe a fairly wide range of biology, everything from the behavior of individual cells, can be referred to as cellular physiology or groups of cells, to the physiology of single tissues or organ systems. This is usually referred to as whatever system we're dealing with, physiology, renal physiology for the physiology of the kidneys, cardiac physiology for the physiology of the heart, neural physiology for the physiology of the brain, and so on. And you can also discuss physiology at the whole organism level as well. In terms of the focus of this course, we are primarily going to be looking at these two levels highlighted here: the physiology, the function of individual cells, small groups of cells, or single organ systems in the particular case of neurophysiology, at least for this semester. All right. So one of the things that we need to keep in mind, given this huge range of physiology, how massive this field is, and this being a one-semester course for people with a range of different levels of background in biology, we are going to be really barely touching the surface of what can be done. And yet, I hope that we can introduce you to a set of tools, a way of thinking about problems that will give you an appreciation for the types of problems that we can tackle. A common feature with all physiological systems is that they're complex. They involve many different components that all interact with one another. A cell is made up of many different components, many different biological macromolecules that all work together to achieve a a biological response. Tissues are composed of many cells that, again, all work together and communicate and work in a coordinated fashion in order to create a biological response, and so on. When we're dealing with complex systems that have what we call non-linear behaviors to them, it is very hard to get a really good handle on what's going on, to really understand the systems without having a model to work with. And in particular, mathematical models can give us deep insight into how these systems work, but because these systems are complex, they have many interacting pieces, the type of math that we need to do to work with these systems has to be computationally implemented. We have to use computers to solve the problems that we're interested in. Right? So what are the goals of this course? Well, one of the goals is for you to learn some of the fundamental concepts in cellular physiology, some of the fundamental concepts in neural physiology. What is it that drives cellular function? What is it that drives neural function? On top of that, we want you to learn how you can develop mathematical models of biological systems. This will be a new thing to many, many people. Most people don't really think of there being a deep connection between biology and math, or being able to use math to describe biology. We're going to discuss how we can do that, and how we can do that in different ways, depending on the level of detail we are interested in catching in our model. We're going to learn how to use computational tools, in particular the scientific programming tool MATLAB, to implement the kinds of mathematical models that we can build of biological systems, and how to use that computational implementation really to do experiments, but to do computational experiments that can give us insight and understanding in how the biological system that we're modeling function. That is, insight into the physiology of those systems. If this sounds complicated, if this sounds like it has a lot of different pieces that all need to come together, it's because it is. This is a multidisciplinary field in the deepest sense of the term. It really does bring together ideas and concepts from many different areas of science. The big picture problems we're working with, what we're trying to understand, is biology. Many of the models that we develop, you will see, are grounded in ideas that come from physics or from physical chemistry. The models are written down using the language of math, but they're complicated enough that we need to implement them using the ideas of computational science. So already here we have biology, physics, chemistry, math, computational science, and then interpretation of the computational experiments brings us back into needing the biology to understand what's going on. So we have maybe half a dozen different fields here that are contributing to the general framework of the problems we're going to be working with. One of the challenges with this is that these fields all have very different ways of thinking about things, even different ways of talking about problems. In many ways, there are different languages for each of these different fields. Fundamentally, the way that a physicist tackles a problem, the way that a mathematician tackles a problem, the way that a biologist tackles a problem tend to be different. The words that you're used to, the words that are sort of comfortable in your mind are different. We sometimes even use different words for the same thing. A vector, for example, can mean very, very different things depending on whether you're a mathematician or a physicist, in which you'll think about it in the context of a type of mathematical object, or if you're a molecular biologist who's used to talking about vectors in the context of transforming cells. Um, these add complications. In order to do meaningful work in a field like this, a multidisciplinary field, even to touch the surface, as we're going to try to in this course, requires a certain level of comfort with these different languages from these different fields. The language of math, the language of biology, the language of physics, of computer science, and so on. And it is not the case that you need to be an expert in all of these areas in order to do work in this field, even to do very important work in this field. Many people working in computational modeling of biological systems generally, cellular physiological systems, neurophysiological systems, have a focus in one area. They may primarily be a physicist, or they may primarily be a biologist, or they may primarily be a mathematician. That is fine. You don't need to be an expert in all of these areas to do work in this area, but you do need to have enough of an understanding. You can sort of think about trying to aim not to become fluent or have a mastery of all of these fields, but to have enough of an understanding of the math. If, say, you're a biologist, have enough of an understanding of the math, of physics, of computer science, that you can speak to somebody who's a mathematician, speak to somebody who's a physicist, speak to somebody who's a computational scientist, and both explain your problem in language that they can understand, and understand when they try to describe how they might understand your problem or would want to try to tackle such a problem, right? Similarly, if your background is more in math or in physics, you don't have to have the same level of deep understanding of all of the different aspects of biology that someone who is a trained biologist would, but you should be familiar enough with the basics, with the general terminology and the fundamental concepts that, again, you can have a conversation with a biologist, understand what their problems are, what the interesting questions they're trying to ask are, and understand enough to know what are reasonable approximations, what are unreasonable approximations, and that sort of thing. Right? You're not going to get all the way there in this course, but our hope is that we'll start to bridge this. There's people in this class from many disciplines, and I hope to bring you together a little bit to develop a common framework of language that we can use to talk about these problems, these multidisciplinary problems, from different angles. Right. I haven't looked through the roster for this semester yet, but every year this class has students from very diverse academic backgrounds. There's always students who are majors in AMS. There's always students who are majors in pure math. There's always majors in biology and biochemistry, in biomedical engineering. very often in chemical and molecular engineering. There's always at least a few students from chemistry and physics, and sometimes quite a number. There's often students from computer science. There's often students from the other engineering disciplines. There's often a handful of students from other disciplines, from psychology, from economics. We've had music students. We've had language students. This is fantastic. This is exactly what this kind of a class needs. It's a multidisciplinary field, and we have a multidisciplinary class. What this means is that the diversity of your peers can be a great asset for your learning the material. Take advantage of this. We have course discussion boards. We will have in Zoom, through Zoom class discussions. Share your expertise with other students and take advantage of the fact that other students in the class have different expertise than you do. This is what we want, why we have these discussion boards. I strongly encourage you to engage with this and try to listen to what your classmates who might have a different academic background from you have to say about how they think about the problems that we're working on and what they find hard to understand. And you can help them out in that aspect, giving your own knowledge. All right. So in summary, computational modeling of physiological processes is this fascinating field, bringing in ideas from many, many disciplines. This is what I do in my research. I am incredibly passionate about this, as you might be able to see. What excites me about this field is this multidisciplinariness. I really love the idea that I can use physics, I can use chemistry, I can answer questions in biology, I can use math, and I can use computer science, and I can think about all of these different things and put them together in hopefully a way that moves forward our understanding of different areas. This is exciting. It's what makes this field so interesting. It also makes it difficult in a lot of ways. And it creates particularly unique challenges for students who are just learning the field as you are. I'd like to make everybody understand that I understand that. My co-instructor, Professor LaCamera, also understands this. We know that this is tough for a lot of people. We know that for many people, there might be one aspect of the course that you understand well, and that other things are a bit of a stretch. We are here to help you learn. The course is not expecting you to already have this multidisciplinary perspective. We are not expecting you to already have a strong grounding in all of these different disciplines. That is exactly what we are trying to do in this course. I hope you will enjoy it. I look forward to guiding you on this journey. That ends the first mini lecture. Take care and be well.